Welcome back. I'm Brady, and this is my story, one filled with mistakes, hard lessons, and the incredible grace of God. If Chapter 1 showed you the weight of my struggles, Chapter 2 will reveal the first glimmers of change. Life doesn't transform overnight, but every new day holds the possibility of something better. Are you ready to take that step with me? Let's dive into Chapter 2, A New Day Dawning. By the time Brady arrived at the front door to his grandmother's house, it was almost 8 p.m. and very dark. The flashlight Mrs. Walsh had loaned him proved to be a lifesaver, sparing him from tumbling. Once inside, he marched straight into the kitchen and rummaged for matches in cupboards and drawers. Soon, his lips curled into a smile when he pulled a full pack from the back of the utensil drawer. He tucked it away into his jacket pocket, then pondered for a moment to remember where his grandmother kept her emergency lamps. With careful steps, he climbed the stairs and walked into his and John's old bedroom. He strolled over to the window and carelessly dropped his duffel bag on the chair that leaned against the wall. He stared outside. Everything was in outer darkness. The only gleam of light came from the moon that sparkled against the Wolf River. Although the river stood a little distance from the house, his room had a great view of it. A few minutes passed before he stepped away from the window and shone the flashlight on the dresser. A smile spread across his face when he spotted a medium-sized lamp sitting on top of it, and he scampered towards it. The lamp still contained just enough oil to last through the night. He laid the flashlight next to the lamp and withdrew the pack of matches from his pocket. A gush of cool air blew into the room as he removed the lampshade. Quickly, he lit the lantern, then walked back over to the window to close the latch. The river called to him, which caused him to stare at it. It was the place he always found refuge in when he wanted to be alone. An urge to take a shower rushed through his body after looking at its shimmering, moonlit water. He picked up the flashlight and turned his heels to the bedroom's bathroom. A groan escaped his lips as he turned the shower knob, remembering the water had been disconnected. First thing tomorrow morning, he mumbled. Brady switched off the flashlight as he walked back into the bedroom and towards the bed. He sank onto the mattress and exhaled. Then he laid the flashlight on the nightstand. Leaning forward, he loosened the laces of his boots before kicking them off his feet. He pushed them under his bed, something he always did while in Lexington. With a swift flick of his wrist, he pulled the covers aside, slipped beneath them, and closed his eyes. The first night on a soft, warm bed helped him to sleep right through the night. His Lexington routine, however, caused him to wake up early the next day. With heavy eyes, Brady glanced at the bedside clock and saw it flashing 7 a.m. Adjusting the covers, he rolled onto his other side and drifted off again. A bright light illuminated the room. He opened his eyes again. This time, when he looked over at the clock, it blinked 1:05. Brady sat up in bed and took a deep breath. What now? He asked himself. Thoughts of what Mrs. Walsh told him about the utilities popped in his mind, and he groaned. He had no desire to go into town and be around anyone, not yet. He tried to rationalize that he was used to the dark from his days in solitary at Lexington, and the Wolf River was nearby for him to shower when needed to. Rising to his feet, he walked across the room and reached for his duffel bag to retrieve his toothbrush. He remembered that he had no toothpaste or soap. Nonetheless, he smiled, knowing his grandmother always thought of everything. He walked into the bathroom and opened the cabinet to check if she had Mrs. Walsh buy him toiletries. Only half a bar of soap sat in the cabinet. I guess I have to go to town after all. I need to hurry if I want to try getting any of these utilities on today, he sighed. In the bedroom, he pulled out a pair of jeans, underwear, and a white t-shirt from the bag, tucked them under his arm, and then headed off to the river. The water felt so therapeutic against his skin. Oh, how he needed it. The smell of fresh water out in its natural surroundings relaxed him. He almost did not want to get out. I must come back here later and do this again, he thought to himself. After spending about 15 minutes swimming around, he got out and hurried back to the house. He picked up all the documents he needed and rushed off to catch the bus going into town. 25 minutes later, he arrived in town and walked into the bank. Although no one there knew of his past, he felt very self-conscious from the looks he received. It was as if voices of condemnation shouted at him. He froze where he stood inside the bank, unable to move. "Are you okay, sir? You look pale." "Can I offer you some assistance?" the voice of a middle-aged woman asked, pulling him from his state of fright. Brady inhaled before he turned and looked at her from head to toe. He then smiled in relief when he realized he was only having a nervous moment. "Oh, yes, I'm all right. Thank you for your concern, ma'am," he explained. "My name is Brady O'Connor. My grandmother opened an account here for me, and I need access to it. Is that something you can assist me with?" he asked, remembering his reason for being there. "Well, that's not my department, but I can show you someone who can," she said, smiling. "Follow me this way." The woman led him over to a customer service agent and explained the situation to the young woman sitting at the desk before she faced him again. "Have a good day, Mr. O'Connor. Thank you for your help." Everything went smoothly from there, and after 25 minutes, Brady walked out of the bank. Upon arriving at the electric company, he groaned aloud when he opened the door and saw the large crowd standing inside. Why don't people pay their bills on time instead of rushing to do so at the last minute? This causes so much chaos, he thought to himself while pushing his way through the crowd towards the customer service desk. 35 minutes of standing in the customer service line had Brady rotating his shoulders to relieve the tension. He sighed in relief when he saw the monitor blinking his number and briskly marched towards the counter. "Here's the amount you need to pay to have the service reconnected, Mr. O'Connor. You will have your light back on 2 hours after you've made your payment," the straight-faced agent informed. She then turned his attention towards the payment line, and with a sympathetic smile, she pointed. "That's the line you will need to join to make your payment, Mr. O'Connor. Enjoy the rest of your day," she added. "Thank you." An hour and a half later, Brady walked out of the electricity company, annoyed. He had no idea he would have stood that long in one line, waiting to pay a bill. "Great," he grumbled, looking at the closed sign on the water company's door. Although he felt disappointed, his stomach growled, redirecting his attention to food. Brady sat in a diner and stared through the window. Everything looked so foreign to him. He recognized no one, though it had been 10 years since he had last been in this town. He thought he may have seen at least one person he knew. After paying his bill, he walked out and headed to the supermarket to purchase his groceries and toiletries before he headed back home. When he opened the front door, he flipped the light switch to see if the light company had fulfilled their promise and smiled when he saw they had. He packed the groceries away in the kitchen and ran upstairs to put the toiletries away in his bathroom. Up until this point, he had not looked around the house as of yet, but after he left his room and headed back down the stairs, he noticed the photos hanging on the walls, most of which were of him. They brought a smile to his face. When he entered the living room, sadness crept upon him when he saw the family photos. His grandmother loved keeping memories of everyone. He saw his parents' wedding photo. How happy they were. Both his parents were of Irish descent and college sweethearts. They had promised each other that they would get married right after graduation. They were so much in love with each other. His eyes then shifted to the other photos standing next to that of his parents. He chuckled at the one of himself and John getting ice cream cones from their grandmother when they visited the fair. There were also photos of him and John in their baseball uniforms back in junior high, fishing together with their dad, and even one of him, John, and Clara swimming down by the river. Ruth's photos showed how close they were all their lives. Brady and John were only a year apart, with John the oldest of the two. One picture, however, caused Brady to lose his composure after seeing it. It was the one John took just before he was to go off to the Navy. Brady smiled, remembering how proud he felt to have a brave brother who wanted to fight for their country. He also remembered how excited John was to know he would be joining him in a year. Brady pulled the photo to his chest, then walked over to the sofa and sat down. He closed his eyes and squeezed them tight to suppress the tears that threatened to fall. A frightened 18-year-old drug addict had robbed his brother of his future and his life. All because John was trying to help him make the right decision to go to the police station and sort out whatever mess he had found himself in with the police. It only caused the kid to panic and tried to flee, and in his frenzy, he stabbed John. By the time Brady and his mom Claudette arrived at the hospital, it was just in time to see them pulling the sheet over John's head. That's it for today's chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss it. If this story speaks to you, share your thoughts in the comments. Marshall would love to hear from you. See you in the next chapter.